ever think about what it would take to actually stand up to a dictator? I
Yeah.
mean, like really put it all on the line, your life on the line to try and change history.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're looking at today.
Okay.
We're diving deep into Nazi Germany, World War II, to explore all the different plots to assassinate Adolf Hitler.
It's such a fascinating side of the war that we don't often get to hear about. But
Wow.
like you say, these individuals that were willing to put everything on the line to stop him.
Yeah, and to stop him from within, not just the Allied forces or,
Exactly. It was internal resistance.
Yeah.
A very, very dangerous thing to do.
Yeah. Our source for this deep dive is an interview between historian Dan Snow and Nigel Jones, who wrote the book Countdown to Valkyrie, the July plot to assassinate Hitler.
Great source.
Yeah, it's a good one. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting is how many times people tried to take Hitler down before that infamous July 20th plot.
I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many times that he survived these attempts on his life.
Right, just crazy.
Yeah.
I think one of the most striking is that early attempt on his life in 1939 at the Munich Beer Hall.
Yeah.
A man named Georg Elser, a carpenter, came incredibly close to killing Hitler.
It was a remarkable plan, really.
Yeah.
This individual who spent weeks meticulously planning this attack, he even chiseled out a section of a pillar in the beer hall to hide this bomb that he built himself.
It makes you think like the amount of the nerve it must have taken to not only come up with this plan, but then to execute it by himself, and under the noses of the Nazi regime.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
I mean, incredible bravery, but also incredible commitment, I suppose, and focus to see something like that through.
Yeah. And, it's that what-if moment.
Yeah.
His plan almost worked. The bomb detonated exactly when Elser had planned it to.
Yeah.
But Hitler had just left the building minutes before.
It's a remarkable story. I mean, one of those real sliding doors moments in history, isn't it?
Yeah. Makes you wonder, what impact did this close call have on Hitler?
I mean, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think it made him more paranoid?
You would think, right.
Or did it maybe have the opposite effect? Did it sort of enhance that sense of I'm invincible?
Right. That he's got some divine protection or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm meant to survive. I've got a destiny to fulfill. This is proof.
And I'm wondering too if it had an effect on future assassination attempts.
It must have done.
Yeah.
You would imagine so. I mean, I think, on the one hand, it would shown that Hitler was vulnerable.
Okay.
That even an individual acting alone could come that close to killing him.
Right.
But then, of course, equally, there would have been a real sense of, well, look what happens. Look at the consequences if it fails.
Right.
What the reprisals were.
Right. Right. And speaking of reprisals, one of the things they talk about in the source material is the British stance on assassination during the war. And it seems like there was a debate going on within the British government on whether it was even ethical or practical to go after Hitler directly.
I think that's always going to be the case, isn't it? I mean, it's a very difficult moral question to wrestle with, isn't it?
Yep.
Whether it's ever justified to assassinate a head of state, even one as monstrous as Hitler.
Yeah, and they talk about Lord Halifax, who was the foreign secretary at the time, being just totally opposed to it.
Yeah.
He argued that it was morally wrong and it could set a really dangerous precedent.
Yeah, I can understand that argument, can't you? I mean, once you sort of condone that, then where does it stop?
Right. Yeah, where does it end?
Yeah, and I think there were also concerns that, if you did succeed, you could very easily end up making Hitler a martyr and actually strengthening the Nazi regime.
And galvanizing, the German people against,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really complex question with no easy answers.
Absolutely.
But it's just that question, you've got the potential to save countless lives by eliminating Hitler. Yeah. But on the other hand, you're crossing a line.
You are, yeah. It's a line that I think a lot of people felt.
Right.
Whatever the provocation should not be crossed.
Yeah. And then of course there was that incident.
Oh yeah.
Venlo incident that really made the British hesitant, even more hesitant to support any kind of operations within Germany.
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly focused minds in London, didn't it? You know, when two of their agents were captured by the Nazis on the Dutch border.
Yeah.
You know, having been tricked into believing that they were meeting
Right.
Anti-Hitler dissidents.
Yeah, trying to get them to,
Yeah.
join their side.
Well, it was a huge intelligence failure.
Yeah.
It was, and a real sort of blow, I think, to British morale and their sort of covert operations for a good while after that.
Yeah, I bet. So you've got this growing internal resistance within Germany, but very limited external support.
Yeah. They were very much on their own, weren't they?
Yeah, which makes their task even more dangerous.
Of course.
And daunting.
Absolutely.
And it's in this atmosphere, the incredibly tense atmosphere, that we meet Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg.
Yeah.
Key figure in the July 20th plot.
Such a fascinating and complex character, I think.
Yeah.
You know, a decorated officer. He'd been quite badly wounded in North Africa.
Right.
Which, rather ironically, really gave him access to Hitler's inner circle.
Yeah, crazy how, something like that almost like he lost an eye, a hand, and several fingers in an Allied airstrike.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And those injuries are what placed him in a position to potentially change history.
Yeah. That's a strange twist of fate, isn't it?
Yeah. And what's interesting is Stauffenberg wasn't always anti-Hitler.
No, not at all.
He was a patriot. He believed in Germany. But it seems like his experiences on the Eastern Front, witnessing the brutality, the catastrophic losses, changed his perspective.
He had a very evolving perspective on the war and Hitler's leadership.
Yeah. He saw firsthand how Hitler's leadership was leading Germany to ruin.
Yeah.
And so he felt compelled to act. And this wasn't just about political disagreement. It was a moral imperative.
This was about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Whatever the cost.
Yeah. Now, try to picture the Wolf's Lair.
Yeah.
Hitler's headquarters.
Yeah.
Heavily fortified headquarters in East Prussia.
Yeah. A remarkable place.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's described as a mix between a monastery and a concentration camp.
Yeah. A real, a place of paranoia and control.
Right. And I mean, just that. Can you imagine that atmosphere?
Yeah, it must have been very oppressive.
Yeah.
Just that constant fear and suspicion that everyone must felt around him.
Yeah. And it's here, in this oppressive environment, that Stauffenberg is going to attempt to change the course of history.
It's an extraordinary story, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, isn't it, how even the setting for this pivotal event sort of adds another layer of complexity to the story.
Yeah.
The Wolf's Lair, this place shrouded in secrecy.
Right.
Heavily guarded.
Yeah.
Almost symbolic, really, of Hitler's regime itself.
Yeah. And you talked about it being a mix between a monastery and a concentration camp.
Oh, yeah.
What were some of those details that gave you that impression?
Well, I think just that sense of isolation.
Okay.
It being cut off from the outside world. That atmosphere of tension, everyone on edge, fearful of making a mistake that might incur Hitler's wrath.
Right.
But at the same time, this kind of strange sense of order and routine,
Okay.
Very strict protocols and schedules governing every aspect of life.
So on the one hand, you've got this oppressive, almost prison-like atmosphere.
Yeah.
But then this strange adherence to order. It's almost surreal.
It is rather surreal, yeah. And there's this rather strange detail that actual bombing took place in a relatively vulnerable wooden hut,
right? Simply
because of the summer heat.
Oh wow!
It's almost as if fate itself was kind of intervening and creating this opportunity in the most unlikely of places.
It really shows you how even the most meticulously planned security measures can be undermined by these insignificant details.
Absolutely.
So how did Stauffenberg actually get the bomb into this heavily guarded complex?
Well, he used his injuries to his advantage.
Okay.
Because of his missing hand and fingers, he was allowed to carry this briefcase.
Okay.
Which he claimed contained documents, but inside the briefcase was a bomb powerful enough to destroy the hut and everyone inside.
It's really incredible when you think about the composure he must have had.
Yeah.
Knowing he was carrying a live bomb into a meeting with Hitler.
Yeah. It's remarkable courage, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pressure he must have been under is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Not only to smuggle the bomb in,
Right.
but then to actually prime it,
Right.
all the while dealing with these quite severe injuries.
And I remember there was also some last-minute interference
Yes.
that affected where the bomb was placed.
Yeah, that's right. Just as Stauffenberg was about to place the briefcase under the table, someone unknowingly moved it further away from Hitler. So, a seemingly inconsequential act,
Right.
but one that would have a significant impact on what transpired next.
So the stage is set, the bomb is primed, the clock is ticking. What happens next?
Well, the bomb explodes.
Okay.
Rocking the Wolf's lair.
Yeah.
4 people are killed instantly.
Gosh.
Many more are injured.
Yeah.
Hitler himself is thrown from his feet.
Okay.
His eardrums are ruptured.
Wow.
But he is alive.
Oh my gosh.
And Stauffenberg, witnessing this from afar, believes Hitler to be dead.
Okay.
And so he races back to Berlin to initiate Operation Valkyrie, the plan to seize control of the government.
Now, Operation Valkyrie wasn't originally designed as a coup attempt.
No, not at all. It was an emergency plan created by the German army to maintain order in the event of an internal uprising or some other major disruption. Okay. The conspirators saw it as the perfect tool to use in the event of Hitler's death.
It's so clever that they were able to just repurpose an existing plan.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it really highlights the level of planning and detail that went into this. So how does Operation Valkyrie unfold?
Well, it's a mixed bag, really. Okay. In Berlin, Stauffenberg and his co-conspirators begin issuing orders. Okay. They arrest key Nazi officials. Right. They attempt to seize control of communication networks.
So they're making progress.
They are, yeah, at least initially. In some areas, they make, quite significant progress, for instance, in Paris. Right. The conspirators managed to arrest hundreds of SS and Gestapo officers, effectively neutralizing the Nazi power structure in the city. Okay, so it sounds like they were gaining some momentum. Yeah, it seemed to be, moving quite well. Okay. But back in Berlin, things begin to unravel. The confusion and uncertainty sets in, fueled by conflicting reports about Hitler's fate. Ah, so the lack of confirmation about his death really throws a wrench in the plan. It does, because remember, the conspirators were working on the assumption that Hitler was dead. Right. And so as soon as news of his survival begins to circulate, it creates this doubt, this hesitation amongst those who are supposed to be carrying out Operation Valkyrie. Wow, I can only imagine the chaos and the uncertainty. Yeah. Here they are trying to stage a coup, and the basis for their plan, Hitler's death, is suddenly called into question. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's at this moment of uncertainty that Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's minister of propaganda, really steps in and plays a pivotal role. Goebbels, the master of spin and manipulation. Absolutely. So how does he turn the tide? Well, he's incredibly cunning. The conspirators had gone to arrest him. Okay. But in this brilliant display of psychological manipulation, he convinces them that Hitler is alive and well, and that they've been deceived. Wow. So he sows the seed of doubt in their minds, uses their own uncertainty against them, and to really hammer this home, he then stages a phone call with Hitler. Okay. Puts the Fuhrer on speakerphone. Oh, wow. So that these hesitant officers can hear his voice. Gosh, that's incredible. It is. It's like something out of a spy thriller. Yeah. This high stakes game of deception and manipulation, all playing out against this backdrop of a potential coup. Absolutely. And I think it really underlines, doesn't it, the power of propaganda and how quickly the tide can turn in a situation like this. Yeah, and for the conspirators, this shift in momentum spells disaster. What started as this, coordinated attempt to seize power
really quickly descends into chaos and confusion as the Nazi regime reasserts control.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what happens to Stauffenberg and the other conspirators?
Well, the price of failure in this case is brutal.
Right.
Stauffenberg and his closest allies are arrested and summarily executed in the courtyard of the Bender Block, headquarters of the Reserve Army.
A firing squad in the dead of night. That's a chilling image.
It is, yeah. It was a desperate attempt to erase any trace of the rebellion and to send a very clear message to anyone who dared to challenge Hitler's authority.
Yeah.
Stauffenberg's final words, as recounted by witnesses, were, "Long live our sacred Germany."
What a powerful and tragic statement. He died believing in a better future for his country, a future free from Hitler's tyranny. But the Nazis' revenge extended far beyond those directly involved in the July 20th plot.
Yeah, hundreds of people were rounded up, tortured and executed in the following months.
Wow.
The Gestapo, fueled by Hitler's rage and paranoia, cast a very wide net, determined to eliminate any potential threat to the regime.
It's just hard to fathom the brutality and the senselessness of it all, especially considering that the war was nearing its end at this point.
It speaks to the fanaticism of the Nazi regime, doesn't it? That unwavering commitment to control and retribution, even as defeat was staring them in the face.
It's a chilling reminder of the dark side of human nature, and the dangers of unchecked power.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a tragedy that Operation Valkyrie failed, but it really makes you think, what if it had succeeded?
Yeah.
What if Stauffenberg had managed to kill Hitler back in July of 1944?
Well, it's one of those great what ifs of history, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, it's impossible to say for sure what would have happened, but it's certainly an interesting question to ponder.
Yeah, I mean, would the war have ended sooner? Could millions of lives have been saved?
Potentially. I mean, it's certainly possible.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine, a world where the Nazi regime suddenly loses its charismatic leader, especially at a time when they're already losing the war.
Yeah.
Where they just collapsed.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, isn't it? I mean, I think, the Nazi leadership was full of individuals who were, absolutely fanatically devoted to the cause and willing to use any means necessary to achieve their aims.
Right.
It's entirely possible, isn't it, that someone like Himmler or Goebbels would have stepped in and continued the fight, perhaps even with even more brutality.
It's a chilling thought, but
it is.
Yeah, realistic one. And what about the Allies?
Yeah.
How do you think they would have reacted?
Again, it's hard to say, but I think by that stage of the war, the Allies were pretty determined to see the defeat of Nazi Germany through to its conclusion. Yeah. They'd seen, the horrors of the regime firsthand, and they were unlikely to settle for anything less than total victory. Right. Now, of course, without Hitler's fanaticism, driving the war effort, it's possible that some kind of negotiated peace might have been achieved sooner. Right. But it's by no means certain.
Yeah. It's just so interesting to think of the ripple effects of such a momentous event. Yeah. Hitler dying, even in 1944, would have sent these shockwaves throughout the world. It would have altered the political landscape in ways that we can only imagine.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, to sort of speculate about these things. Yeah. But I think it's important to remember that even if the July 20th plot had succeeded, it wouldn't have magically erased Nazi ideology, or the damage that had already been done. Germany and indeed the whole of Europe would still have had to grapple with the legacy of Nazism, the scars of war, the immense task of rebuilding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. It reminds us that history is complex. Yeah, and even these dramatic events don't necessarily lead to simple solutions. But even though Operation Valkyrie failed, it's still such a powerful story.
It is. It's a testament to the courage of those who were willing to stand up to tyranny, even when the odds were so heavily stacked against them. Right. They knew the risks. They knew the potential consequences. Yeah. And yet they chose to act anyway.
And Stauffenberg in particular is just such a compelling figure.
Yeah.
A decorated war hero
Yeah.
who becomes so disillusioned with the regime that he once served
Yeah.
and ultimately sacrifices his life trying to bring it down. It's a story of conviction,
Yeah.
moral courage, putting principles above your own safety.
Yeah, and what I find particularly striking is that, Stauffenberg and the other conspirators weren't motivated by personal gain or ambition. They weren't seeking power for themselves. This was about doing what they believed was right for their country.
It's a reminder that resistance can take many forms. And even in the darkest of times, there are those who refuse to give in to despair.
Yeah.
They choose hope, they choose action, and they inspire us with their unwavering belief in a better future.
I think that's the enduring legacy of Operation Valkyrie, isn't it?
Yeah.
It may have failed to achieve its immediate objectives, but it serves as this powerful reminder that even in the face of overwhelming power, individuals can make a difference. And their courage and sacrifice continue to resonate, reminding us, I think, of the fragility of freedom and the importance of fighting for what we believe in.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive into the plots to assassinate Hitler. We've been able to shed light on a lesser-known aspect of World War II. And I think we've gotten a glimpse into the complexities of resistance and the courage of those who dared to challenge one of history's most brutal regimes.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive into the stories that shape our world.